Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the HPN University Virtual Campus Tour. I am so excited to kick off a very jam-packed and exciting day of introducing you to all of the strategies and best practices about the HPN University. We do have a big day, and we are kicking things off today with our Enterprise Onboarding Best Practices, Processes, Resources, and More session. That'll be hosted by me. And then after the first session, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back again at noon Central Time for our executive panel discussion, implementing HPN University within your organization. So it's going to be a big day, and we're also going to do a little bit of refreshers throughout the sessions today on some of the things that were discussed on Tuesday in our first session. So if you weren't able to join us for the initial 2 sessions, you'll be able to catch up real quick on the program today. And we are so glad to have you here. So I just wanted to take a quick moment and introduce myself. My name is Melissa Peck, and I'm the Director of Client Services here at HPN. I have been with HPN for over 11 years now, and over that time I have really had the opportunity to learn the ins and outs of not only this amazing industry that we're in, but also the best practices on learning design, digital learning, and platform. And I'm going to share all of that I've learned over the last 11 or so years with you today. So it's really an honor for me to be here and a culmination of a lot of learning for me to be able to impart to you today. So I'm very excited. Now, before we get into the presentation, I wanted to do a quick poll. And just to better understand who's on the call with us today. So the poll is going to ask, which of the following areas do you have experience with during your career in learning and development? So let me just put that poll up for you here. And if you just take a quick moment and put in your experience, whether that's using single sign-on integration, developing custom learning paths, branding and marketing, learner database management, or help desk and support administration. So thank you so much for being engaged. Looks like we've got a bunch of responses coming in, so we'll give it just another few seconds for you to answer. Great. Okay, about 80% there, just another couple of seconds. All right, let's take a look at the responses so far, and I will share the results. It looks like a majority of you on the call have a lot of experience with developing custom learning paths. About 77% of you responded that. We also have an even split, 31% dealing with single sign-on, branding and marketing, and learner database management. And another 15% of you answered that you have experience with help desk and support administration. So that's great for me to know. Thanks for taking that poll, and we will move on now with the presentation. So in the first session, the Tuesday session, we talked in depth about the HPN University. And you saw that we have so much great content, a lot of best practices to share, and many resources to support your success with a learning platform like HPN University. We also talked about engagement strategies, ways that we as a content specialist team create content that's really engaging for the learners. And we also talked about engagement strategies outside of the university. So now the question remains, how do you put it all together? How do you make a success of a big initiative like the HPN University in your organization? So In order to answer that question, how do we make this all come to life? Today we're going to talk about 4 different areas that can drive success with onboarding and launch of the HPN University. The first of those is launch strategy and promotion. So we'll talk about all the ways and the lessons that I've learned with my experience on how to best launch this as a program and kick it off, and all of the great tools that we have to help make that a turnkey experience. We're going to talk about the website itself and the different ways that you can customize it and personalize it to your organization to make it really feel seamless. Ooh. We're going to talk about learner management, which for many people is the biggest question of all. How do we get people into the system so that they can access the learning? And then finally, we're going to talk about analytics and ROI. How do you know if you're using the platform successfully? How do you know that the investment is valuable and that really change is happening and growth is happening with your field? So those are the great topics that we're going to be talking about today. Now, what I want to do is zoom out for a moment and recapture some of the important research and statistics that Joey shared on his first session on Tuesday, which comes to us from a study that was done by LinkedIn Learning. And LinkedIn Learning recently published this 2020 study that showed the top 3 challenges for talent developers. And when we're thinking about how do we build an effective learning development platform, here are the top 3 challenges. 36% of those in this research study said that increasing employee engagement was their top challenge. 42% said that creating a culture of learning was their top challenge, and that is something that's so important. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that today. And then finally, 49%, almost half of all of those surveyed, answered that getting managers to make learning a priority for their teams was one of their top challenges. So let's unpack those a little bit more. Starting with increasing employee engagement in learning. As I mentioned, we spent a lot of time on this in our earlier session, talking about the ways that we design and deliver our learning content in a way that really engages the learner. We have a huge faculty of diverse voices contributing to all of the learning that we provide. And we also have a very turnkey platform that makes it easy for the learners to get in and find what they're looking for. In terms of the number 2 challenge, creating a culture of learning, we talked about how the HPN University is a manager-driven tool, but we also talked about how we approach not only the field level managers to drive engagement on the platform, but also managers in different departments, different teams, and also at a regional level and the home office level. And then finally, the number 1 challenge, getting those managers to make learning a priority for their teams. We talked about how the HPN University provides so much leverage and scalability for managers to be able to run effective and repeatable instructor-led training, one-on-one coaching, and just-in-time learning support for their advisors. So those are the things that we talked about in the earlier session. I think it's important to bring that back to the forefront of our mind today, because all of the onboarding strategies and resources that we're going to look at today were built to address challenges just like these. And we know that this is so prevalent across the industry and certainly for learning and development professionals like you. So let's talk about the approach and the philosophy that we take when we launch a new organization using the HPN University. We emphatically support a top-down launch. That is absolutely important and essential. The very, very first thing that the client success team does when we are onboarding a new subscriber to the university is we work to engage our stakeholders, the decision makers and the key members of the home office teams, the learning and development teams, leadership development teams. So we will spend quite a bit of time engaging and educating those stakeholders about what the platform is and how it works. We do that through virtual training. We do that through in-person training, as you'll see in a second. But the very, very first thing that we do is we build a strong base at the top of the organization to help promote and drive success with the tool. Then our next step, of course, is to engage the advocates. And among those advocates, we count field leaders themselves, as well as functional departments, regional executives, and everybody that is going to be charged with creating success with this platform. And then finally, once we've got all of those really important champions and drivers ready to roll, then we launch access to the learners themselves. And among those, we include the advisors and managers themselves using the platform for their own development. So at the start of that process, your stakeholder team will meet with your account manager on my team here at HPN, and we will sit down with you to go through a strategic onboarding meeting and outline the whole timeline for your launch. We've developed a lot of systems and a lot of repeatable processes that we follow, so you can really count on us to lead you through this process. When we have that strategic onboarding meeting, we're going to review your company hierarchy so that our team really innately understands your team and the company's structure. That way we can really build a strong partnership where you can consider us an extension of your team. We're going to talk about all of the key people, what their roles are, and what expectations will be for those folks. And then we're going to talk about what the branch onboarding and rollout strategy should look like, and we'll talk about timeline with that too. We're going to talk about key performance indicators and leading indicators. The number one leading indicator for success on this platform will be whether or not your organization requires managers to become certified on the platform. So we'll talk about the process of using that as an onboarding course for your managers and holding them accountable to get that done as a key part of the launch. We'll talk about the process for user access setup and maintenance. We provide a lot of training about that. We're going to talk about correspondence and marketing. We've got template emails and template communications that you can use. And then finally, those key indicators for success and metrics to measure. As I mentioned, we're also going to talk about a strategic launch timeline. And we have quite a lot of experience in terms of how long each step will take, whether we include things like an SSO integration where we're connecting your learning platform with ours, or we're doing any sort of customization. Those things take time, so we have mapped out how long each step in that process will take. And that way we're going to really hit our deadlines and make sure that we are delivering the launch on time. I mentioned a moment ago the material that we have ready to go, prefabricated for promoting the launch among your field. Those items include email copy that you can use for announcements. We have flyers and posters that you can customize and personalize with your company's logo. We also have a presentation deck that you can use to announce how the HPN University fits in with your overall learning and development plan. So these are tools that we've developed over a long period of time, and they're ready for you to use so that you don't have to recreate the wheel during this process. We will even show up at your house and make sure that we kick things off with a bang. You know, whether that's at an expo that you're hosting or at an actual you know, team meeting or presentation. We love to see you when circumstances permit us to be out in the field. We will certainly be happy to join you for a virtual kickoff. We do love to you know, be able to kind of feel that exchange and that dialogue out in the field. So it's our pleasure to do that. Now, let's talk about the platform itself. There are so many components to the website, and that's another area where you can lean on our expertise and experience to guide you through all the ways that you can use the platform. When we think about flexibility and customization and your organization's ability to make this feel like a seamless part of your existing learning environment, we have 3 ways that we can approach that. The first is through platform integration, where we create a single sign-on connection that allows users to authenticate on your end, whatever learning platform that might be, and then go seamlessly into the HPN University without requiring another login and password. That's a really great way to make this a very seamless experience and a user-friendly experience for your field. We have the ability to white label, including your company's branding and colors into the overall chassis of the website. And we also have the ability to partner with you to create custom content. And that might be things like learning paths for specific groups that you want to train, like perhaps new advisor training or leadership development training. We can curate the content within HPNU and put that into a package just for your organization in the order and sequence that you like. And we also have the ability to publish and stream your content if you wanted to publish your company's own proprietary content within our platform. So there's quite a lot of flexibility within this website. And all of that will allow you to really put your stamp of approval and your company's arms around the platform, make it feel like it's a piece of your organization. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about platform integrations. I know that even just seeing some of this mapping and documentation on the screen might cause you to just, the greatest thing about working with HPNU on a platform integration is that you don't have to get involved. We will facilitate this process for you between your company's IT resource and our platform partners, eLearning Brothers, to make sure that we can test and deliver a seamless platform integration. We are very well versed in this process. We do it all the time, and it's something that we can easily lead for you to make it very, very easy. When we talk about white labeling and putting your company's own branding on the platform, there are a couple of different areas of real estate, if you will, where you can do that. As you can see from the images here, you have the ability to create a custom banner that lives at the top of the university with your company's logo or any sort of key programs or initiatives. We can, work with whatever you'd like to have in that space as long as it fits within our specs. And we do have documentation of all of those requirements for branding. And below, you can see a couple of examples of different ways that we use that same real estate, if you will. When we talk about custom content and learning paths, you should know that first and foremost, we've already done so much of this content curation in the platform that's ready to go. So by that, I mean our coaching resources section, where we have advisor development roadmaps for years 1, 2, and 3. We have an initial training roadmap. We have classroom training planned for 24 months if you want to follow the content that we've curated. But we also love to partner with organizations to create very, very proprietary roadmaps that function in just the same way, but that are exclusive to your learners. So that would mean working with our team. Maureen Mahoney is our engagement specialist and content expert, and she partners with organizations to come up with the perfect learning roadmap for your organization. So we love to do that. And as you can see from some of the examples, we have documentation that we can provide to help you launch a custom learning path. We have that seamless ability to show your learning roadmap within our menu so that it all feels like it flows. So we've talked about how the platform allows you to personalize it. We talked about the sort of onboarding strategy from a high level. So now the question is, how do we get the learners from A to Z? How do we get them in so that they can experience the learning in the university? Essential to getting learners into the platform is what we call the administrator role in your organization. In part of our strategic conversations, we're going to want to designate a key administrator in your organization who's going to be responsible for 3 areas. The first will be to streamline communications. It's really, really important to have one person who works as a liaison to connect all of the dots, whether that's through launch communications, tracking, reporting, and making sure that all of the initiatives are flowing together. Help desk support for your organization, and by that I mean somebody that can answer basic troubleshooting on behalf of the organization to make sure that learners who have questions are getting answers in a very quick and timely turnaround, and then also escalating any necessary troubleshooting inquiries to our team, so that person works very, very closely with me and the client success team here. And then finally, managing the learner access directly on the platform. So to that end, we provide a lot of very field-tested training and procedures on the process of adding, creating, and establishing users in the platform, and also making sure that when there's turnaround in the company and learners perhaps leave the organization, that we discontinue their access to the platform to make way for somebody else to join. We have a lot of scalability with this process. We do have the ability for administrators to batch import and export users, which makes it very, very simple and kind of user-friendly and intuitive on the platform. So now that we've got that administrator in place, we've talked about the launch strategy, we've talked about all of the resources that our team has at your disposal to make the feeling and the look of the platform feel really integrated. My next question for you is, what is the recipe for success with this platform? And we've talked about measuring results. We talk about ROI a lot. And the most important thing I think that we need to keep front and center is that the ultimate result that we're looking for with a learning platform like the HPN University is growth. And by that I mean growth in productivity among your advisors, growth among your leaders to excel as mentors and coaches. We're talking about those outcomes that your organization is looking for. And certainly included in that would be skill development. But there are many different ingredients to measuring success. So what I want to do is zoom in on some of those different ways that we measure success. And as we're doing that, the first thing I'm going to do is put up another poll because I wanted to ask, and let's put this question up on the screen here. When measuring training impact, which kinds of ROI feedback does your organization consider currently? So let's launch this poll, and if you just take a moment and answer, some of those types of ROI tracking include qualitative feedback from employees, number of online courses that have been completed, number of learners who consistently learn online, the learner satisfaction, and qualitative feedback about the behavioral change itself. So take a look at some of those different kinds of ROI tracking and answer in the poll. Thank you so much for your engagement. I see we've got 63% responding already. We'll give it another couple of seconds. %73%. Any last minute poll responses? We'll take them if you got them. And thank you to those who are submitting comments in the chat as well. Appreciate seeing that. All right, let's end the polling and let's look at your results. When measuring training impact, which kind of ROI feedback does your organization consider? 60% of you said you consider qualitative feedback from employees. 53% said you count the number of courses that were completed. 33% said the number of learners who are consistently learning online. 40% said qualitative feedback about behavioral change. And it looks like the majority of you, 67%, said you're getting ROI feedback from learner satisfaction. So hearing from the learners, how are they using the site? How do they experience it? What is their reaction to it? That is so interesting to hear that. So as I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn Learning did their workplace learning report recently, and here were the results that they found from their polling. 43%, the highest number, were getting qualitative feedback from employees, and I think that's quite interesting compared to the 34% employee satisfaction percentage that LinkedIn found. You know, it's very, very closely split among all these different types of ROI. I think this is very interesting because, as LinkedIn also found, a standard learner engagement measure has yet to emerge. We don't have yet a scientific, quantitative way to tell how much the learner is absorbing and putting into practice. It also included in this LinkedIn Learning report, they shared the 4 different ways that learning and development currently defines an engaged learner. Number 1 would be course completions. Number 2 would be learner satisfaction surveys. So again, hearing that qualitative feedback. Minutes learning per month, okay? And finally, repeat visits per month. So are they coming back and learning again and again? LinkedIn also revealed that 24% of learning and development professionals who do not measure learner engagement based on online usage data. So that means, you know, on the flip side, that 76%, if I've got my math right, do measure performance and engagement based on the usage data within a learning platform. So all of these trends are so interesting, and I just you know, want you to think about how your organization approaches these same questions. You know, how do you measure success with the platform, whether that's through the feedback of your learners or through more quantitative measurements? And by the way, we do measure qualitative feedback from the field. We've had many, many you know, great testimonials and stories shared with us. These are just a few of those. including Court of the Table producer Kyle Gleich from Western and Southern, who said, "I've spent years crafting my language and process from the HPN University. It's one of the industry's absolute best resources, and my team and I continue to receive a ton of value from it." Clay Flower, who is an agency manager at Country Financial, said, "HPN University is an amazing tool providing key topics from the best of the best in our industry at a moment's notice. It's a game changer in my agency for not only the new reps, but also the more seasoned. Ever since I started using HPN University years ago, my weekly coaching meetings have never been the same." So those are just a couple of the qualitative feedback samples and snippets that we've received over the years. And this is certainly one way that we measure the success of the content that we're putting out on the university. And when we look at quantitative metrics on the platform, we have a lot of data to work with. And I think this is a very important part of your overall strategy, is to be very well versed and aware of how you can track quantitatively with the university as well. We have two key metrics that we look at quantitatively. And the first of those is what we call engagement. And that is sort of the depth of content that the individual average learner explores on the library. So, in this image, you can see one student who's got a great big stack of things that she's researching. So how much content and value is an individual getting from the platform? The other metric we call adoption, and that's the width of learning that's happening. So of all of your field who have access to the platform, how many of them are accessing the content and using it on a repeat basis? So those are our two key metrics on the university, and we measure many different factors in those two categories. So again, those were engagement and adoption. The platform of the HPN University has a lot of great administrative tools on what we call the back end of the site. And one of those things is massive reporting ability. As you can see from the images on this slide, we have the ability to track data from a macro level, looking at an overall trend over time. And we also have the ability to really parse this data to look at an individual user and see how much content an individual is looking at on the site. This particular view, the individual user report, is one of the best things that a manager can access to hold their advisors accountable to completing enrolled content or any sort of activities that the manager is enrolling or assigning or putting forward in their training. So you've got all of this amazing data at your fingertips in real time on the platform, and that is a very important asset. But beyond that data, you also have the strength of the HPN team and our systems for analysis, and our ability to take all of that data and put it into some really high impact visualizations to show you what's going on with activity across your organization. On this image, you can see a quick sample of a report that we run on a regular basis for an organization that shows the total number of views of data, views of content that the organization's learners are looking at over a period of time. We're able to track the trend of activity. And by the way, while we're here, I just want to pay special note of this huge spike of activity that we saw in March and April of this year because of COVID. So it's so critical to have a digital learning resource at a time like this when we're all working remotely, and to be able to build that continuity and consistency in a time like this is so essential. And you can see just at a glance how much response there has been to the learning content among advisors during that period. We also track things like enrollments. Are your managers assigning content to advisors in the field? And what's their success rate with those enrollments? Are the advisors actually completing them? Are they, somewhere in the process of completing them? Those are very important and empowering stats for a manager to have so that they can continue to lead by example. We have the ability to track and compare activity from region to region or branch to branch. And organizations who are doing this are using these measures to create a lot of great positive competition between firms and regions, which not only drives adoption and engagement, but as a byproduct, it drives so much activity and skill development. We can track individual leaderboards to see who is using the most content, who's the most engaged, whether that's individual advisors or managers. And we can track content trends to show you what are the most popular videos and courses among your learners in your organization. So all of that content and data is available in real time from the dashboard on the university. So we have had quite a journey here talking about systems and processes for launching the HPN University effectively in your organization. A lot of these best practices that you've seen me go through have developed over a number of years, and we are showing them to you today because we know these are the proven methods for success with the HPN University. Now, because I don't like to show up to a party without some sort of gift, we are going to make available to you on the webinar today for download our HPN University Enterprise Onboarding Playbook for 2020. So you can access that from the Zoom meeting and download that. And this actually recaps a lot of the screen grabs that you saw on the presentation today. You can read about our process and procedures. We've got a lot of those templates available for you, so you can flip through those. And I think this will be a great way for you to get a little bit closer to some of these best practices. It has been a jam-packed session today, and I know that Joey is going to be joining us very soon to kick us off into the next session, which starts at noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have an amazing executive panel. And Joey, are you on the line to tell us what's coming? I'm sure he is.
Melissa, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, we're really excited. The top of the hour, we're going to come back with our executive panel. We have Kristen Blakesley from One America in the home office, who heads up recruiting and learning and development. We have Cooper Carver, who's the Director of Education and Development for American National, for those of you all in the multi-line space on here. And then finally, we have Jay McMahon, Managing Director, Freedom 55 Financial in Ontario East, who's going to give you a field perspective from over the years of him utilizing the platform, and really get to hear down at the street level a lot of these things that Melissa's talking about how they implement that with his leadership team and with his consultants and advisors locally. So excited about that. We'll open it up for Q&A here in a minute, and then give you all a break and start back at the top of the hour. But Melissa, thanks a ton and excellent job.
Thanks, Joey. And I will say, if you have any questions about implementation, about any sort of onboarding strategy or anything that we've talked about in the session today, you can certainly reach out to me at my email address, which is up here on the screen, melissa@hoopus.com. And I'm happy to take any questions that we have in the next couple of minutes before we take a break. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat box on the Zoom meeting, and I'll be happy to take a look at those. Thanks so much for those of you who have entered comments during the session today. So just taking a look at your chat box questions. And all right. I must have done a fantastic job. We don't have any questions yet, but I do want to say again, if you have questions during the session or from the session, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk through these ideas with you. Our whole team is very, very excited to get to know your organization, and wish you a lot of success with the HPN University.